So I welcome you all to online career guidance seminar organized by Association of Muslim Professionals. The main aim of this session is to help students choose a field that is in tune with their skills and their job expectations. With the help of such career guidance seminar, most students end up choosing the right career and perform their level best, which ultimately helps them succeed. So AMP keeps organizing such sessions for the benefit of everyone. So we request you all to keep joining such sessions. And as we all know that today's session is about architecture, and we have a speaker with us as well. So we'll be starting our session soon. We'll start our session with a short kirat, and then I would request Fuzail Bhai to give a brief introduction of AMP, and then we'll start the session. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس صدق الله العظيم. Thank you. Fuzail, I request you to please give a brief introduction of AMP and we'll then start the session. Thank you.
Welcome to the AMP Online Career Guidance Seminar by the Association of Muslim Professionals. We've been operational for over 12, this is the 13th year in progress. And um, the Career Guidance Seminar basically is one of our forte where we give you guidance in terms of your career, in terms of how you start and what you can do and where you will land up and what sort of jobs are there in that specific industry. What sort of courses are there which can lead you towards that particular industry. Usually the problem we've seen is a lot of people are not very clear about what they want to do in life. So doing a job is very different from a career, right? So that's why we are hosting the career guidance seminar. So I'll quickly tell you about AMP. AMP is registered in India, USA, UK and Australia as a non-profit organization. We have completed 12 years now, and we serve in the field of, as an NGO, we serve in the field of education, employment, and empowerment. So we have a vision to impact to 10 million people by 2030. Our mission is that we want to empower the underprivileged community for the greater benefit of the society, and in general, as a nation as a whole. And not only the underprivileged, because it's a professional organization, everybody who's a member of AMP also is contributing towards the development of the nation. So AMP's vision is that we want a lot of advancement in education. These are gaps that we've seen in our community. So we need advancement in education. We need to be socially progressive. We need to be culturally vibrant. We have to be politically influential, and we also need to be economically dynamic. So all of our efforts and initiatives that we take are in line with the vision of building a model community. Now I'll tell you a bit about what we do and our achievements in the past. So the first division of our operations is the school development programs, or SDPs. The school development programs, we work towards developing the schools and students and teachers and parents across multiple geographies. So we've done 2,750 plus skill development lectures like this one, and we have 800 plus schools that are connected through our initiatives across various geographies that we work with, and we have 275,000 students who have benefited through our operations, and 100 plus teachers that we have done training for, and we've also had parenting workshops. So that is the school development program, where we work together holistically to uplift the schools and colleges and universities and the educational system as such. Then we have just having education is not enough. Everybody has to earn in life. So we have the employment assistance cell. We have close to 350 job fairs and drives that we have initiated and completed, and we've placed close to 20,000 plus candidates through these job fairs and drives through the employment assistance cell. And we need, when you're doing a particular job, you need a lot of skills that you need. So you need a lot of soft skills and all of that. So we have an employability trainings that we take place, 200 plus of them. that we've done, and 15,000 plus degree students who have completed their graduation have benefited from our employment assistance cell till date. And then we have the scholarships and self-employment. So we see that a lot of students who are very, very intelligent don't get the opportunity because they do not have the resources. So we have the scholarships and self-employment, where we've helped more than 800 plus higher education scholarships that we've sponsored. We've helped a lot of orphans, specifically 750 plus orphans we have helped, who otherwise wouldn't have any access to education. We've helped 250 families by offering them self-employment assistance, and helping them develop their self-sustenance. And while doing all of these non-profit initiatives in terms of education, employment, and all of that, we have a resource center that we've developed of 600 plus career counselors, and 2000 plus students who we've counseled through the AMP Resource Center. And we have 50 plus documents, and it's a growing knowledge bank that is there जो है हमारे पास. और ये जो career chart के बारे में बोल रहा था आपको, this is the 1000 plus career charts distributions that we have done. तो यही नहीं, we have won a lot of awards and partnership भी हमने जीते हैं. We've had 280 plus educationalists who are connected and awarded to our initiatives. हमारे 30 plus partners है जो हम skill training करते हैं, job fairs करते हैं उनके साथ, और हम स्टेट गवर्नमेंट के साथ भी काम करते हैं अपलिफ्टमेंट के लिए. एंड वी हैव 50 प्लस पार्टनर एनजीओज जो हमारे जैसे हैं. इन टर्म्स ऑफ एन एनजीओ वी वर्क विद इन टर्म्स ऑफ स्कूल डेवलपमेंट एंड एम्प्लॉयमेंट, स्कॉलरशिप वगैरह. Because the most important thing for everybody is we want people who have gone through all of that in life to actually join us back and help the other people who have not got the opportunity. So we want that to happen. Now, about the reach, we have an on ground presence, where we have more than 6,000 plus active members. और ये members they are across 100 plus active chapters. Chapters मतलब एक एक city का एक एक chapter है, और उसका एक एक secretary रहता है, president रहता है, various divisions that I spoke about, all of that are also there. And we have presence across 25 states and 16 countries that we operate in. And in all of these places, our goal is only for striving for peace and progress in the upliftment and development of your community. And we have an online presence of 1,25,000 members and professionals who are connected through our initiatives. So that is about AMP. If you would like to join us, please visit ampindia.org/join AMP. If you would like to know more about us, please feel free to visit the website ampindia.org to know our initiatives, and see if you would like to also, if you already done your degree, or if you want to contribute support to other people who need help in terms of education, employment, you can join us and work along with us to help them also. So their numbers, हमारा website है, email ID है, our address is there. Please feel free to follow our scholars and everything. So that's about it from me regarding the introduction to AMP. Now, and quickly, what I will do is, आज का session is about a career in architecture. Now, we have a very, very prominent speaker who has a lot of experience in that field. Sir's name is Mr. Samir Shaikh. He's the design director and chair of New Delhi studio BDP. He's got a bachelor in architecture honorary, MUD USA, FIA, Association AIA, FIUDI, IGBCT, MAP. Those who are interested in architecture, I'm sure you know all of these designations. Samir sir is a design director and studio chair at BDP New Delhi. Like I said, he's an architect, and he's an urban designer with 20 years of professional experience in India as well as the United States of America. And he has a Bachelor of Arts degree from University of Mumbai, and a master's degree in urban designing from University of Colorado, Denver, United States of America. His career and professional work spans across architecture, around urban design as well as interior design. And uh, he has a very wide and varied experience, which includes working for design consultancy firms. He's worked with government bodies, and he's also worked with private developers. And Sir's main body of experience has been around planning of integrated townships, IT parks, and residential developments. And apart from these, his experience also covers private houses, educational campuses, transportation infrastructure, and feasibility studies as well. Sir has also worked on several green buildings and sustainable planning projects. Sir is a registered architect with the Council of Architects India, and he's a member of several professional institutions. And he has been actively engaged in architectural education and pedagogy, coordinating the postgraduate program in urban design at Rizvi College of Architecture, Mumbai. He has also served as a jury on several design dissertations and competitions, and as a speaker and panelist on several other conferences. So we heartily welcome you for the day, Samir sir, and I'm sure all of the attendees are going to benefit considerably with all of your experience. So without any delay, I'll hand over the screen to you. Thank you.
So I'll start. Jazakallah khair to AMP and to
We can hear
Fuzail
you.
Bhai and to Shehzad Bhai for um, such an introduction. Before I start, I just wanted to wish that everybody is keeping safe and well in this difficult times of COVID-19. And these are difficult times, and hopefully everybody is taking adequate care and being safe at home. And we'll be getting over those difficult times, and soon, hopefully, such events by AMP will be happening face to face rather than online. But this technology of online webinars is again a big boon, and even in these difficult times, it's great that AMP can continue with their good work of career guidance. So I thank everybody at AMP to sort of give me this opportunity to talk to potential students who might be interested in the profession of architecture. So having said that, my presentation will be about architecture, definitely about the profession of architecture. Before I begin, mainly I'll be talking in English because it's a professional talk. But at the same time, I'll be using Hindi and Urdu in the middle. So if people are not comfortable or haven't understood any of the anything that I've mentioned, they're please welcome to sort of write in the comments or ask questions. So I'll be explaining to you about the profession, about my sort of journey in the profession, about the study of architecture, about career prospects in architecture. And then, later on, we can keep a Q&A session, which will be moderated by Fuzail Bhai. I have a presentation which I'll be starting right now. So just give me a moment while I pull up the presentation. So hopefully everybody can see the screen now.
Yes, Samir, it's visible.
Okay, all right. So as I said, my name is architect Samir Shaikh. I'm an architect and urban designer by profession. And these are the quick topics that I'll be quickly covering today. I'll be explaining a little bit about myself, about my education, about what kind of work I do in the beginning, very briefly, but just to give you an idea about where I come from. Then take you through a quick journey on architecture, starting from what is architecture. A lot of people might have that questions. Why is there a need for architects? Who is an architect? Who can call themselves an architect? And what do typically architects do? And what do they design? And who hires them? And what kind of skills you need for to become an architect? And what type of education you need to become an architect? What are the job and career prospects in this field? And then what can you do beyond architecture, and what is the future of architecture? So hopefully this sort of format will give you a comprehensive idea about the entire profession. And then if you have any questions, we can sort of take from there. About me, like I said, architect and urban designer. Some of you might know what an architect is, but many of you might not know who an urban designer is or what an urban designer does. I'll take you through that a little bit later. I did my bachelor's in architecture from Mumbai University in 1999. And then later on, I worked for a year before I applied with my GMAT and applied to US universities to pursue my master's degree. I was interested in urban design, which is basically a designing of larger townships. You know, architecture जो होता है वो buildings का होता है, urban design जो होता है वो बड़े-बड़े शहरों की जो designing होती है, वो urban design होता है basically. So मैंने जो specialization किया वो urban design में किया. आर्किटेक्चर के बाद में जो 2002 में मैंने ग्रेजुएट किया, फिर मैंने वहाँ पर I worked in California for 6 years on an H1B visa, and after two terms of my H1B, I came back to India. जब मैं वहाँ पे गया था, मेरा प्लान नहीं था कि वहाँ पे सेटल होना है. मैं गया था वहाँ पे to get a good education, to get a good exposure, to get a good work experience, international work experience. और मेरा पहले से प्लान था कि मैं वापस आऊँ अपने वतन इंडिया आके यहाँ के लिए मैं कुछ काम करूँ. तो मेरा प्लान 2008 में मैं वापस आया इंडिया. और यहाँ पे I worked for various companies. I worked for consultancies. I was with a developer Tata Group. I did some projects on my own. I worked with international firms. So currently I'm a design director and studio chair at BDP New Delhi. BDP is a UK-based firm with an office in New Delhi. I'm basically, background-wise, I'm born and brought up in Thane, which is a suburb just outside Mumbai. And I've been here, living here since last 4 generations, basically. So I'm very much a Mumbaiite. I'm very much but I have also at the same time, got the opportunity to work across the globe. I've worked in UK. I've worked in projects in USA. I've worked almost all the major cities in India. So it's it's fortunate enough to have got the opportunity to sort of travel extensively because of my work and because of the projects that I did overall. And in the recent years, I've been working on projects in the neighboring countries of Bangladesh and Nepal and other countries as well. So overall, I have 20 years of experience, out of which 7 years have been in the USA, and then rest have been experience working in India, in Mumbai. So that's me. Just a brief introduction about me. If you have further questions, I'll be happy to answer that. But the next thing that I wanted to talk about is what is architecture? Yeah, architecture hota kya hai? Everybody talks about architecture, and ये हर तरफ है हमारी जगह. हम जो इस बिल्डिंग में बैठे हैं वो भी आर्किटेक्चर ही है. हम जिस ऑफिस में काम करते हैं वो आर्किटेक्चर है. हम जो स्कूल में जाते हैं, कॉलेजेस में जाते हैं, वो जो बिल्डिंग्स बनी है वो आर्किटेक्चर है. हॉस्पिटल्स में हम जाते हैं वो आर्किटेक्चर है. ट्रेन स्टेशन में जाते हैं, एयरपोर्ट्स जाते हैं, वो आर्किटेक्चर. तो आर्किटेक्चर ये जो है ये हर तरफ है बेसिकली. इट इज द if I just have to rephrase what I've written here, it's the art and practice of designing and constructing buildings, to put it in very simple terms, right? But at the same time, it is not just the buildings तो हर कोई बना लेता है, लेकिन आर्किटेक्चर जो होता है ना, ये एक कल्चर का, जो वहाँ की जो तहजीब है, जो कल्चर है, उसका कल्चर का वो एक सिंबल बन जाता है. It is basically it symbolizes the culture of that region. So architecture is not just purely cement or brick नहीं होता. It also at the same time projects an image of the culture. So उस मायने में architecture becomes a very important profession, because एक शहर की बिल्डिंग्स देख के आप वो शहर की जो क्वालिटी है, वो शहर की जो फिलॉसफी है, वो आप समझ सकते हो कि व्हाट ये शहर किस चीज को इंपॉर्टेंस देता है. वो आप उसके आर्किटेक्चर देख के आप समझ पाते हो कि अच्छा ठीक है, ये शहर जो है इस तरीके का है, ये यहाँ पे इस तरीके के बिल्डिंग्स हैं, तो ये शहर का जो फिलॉसफी है या जो शहर की जो थिंकिंग प्रोसेस है वो ये है. थ्रू आउट हिस्ट्री भी आप देख लो, आर्किटेक्चर इज वन ऑफ द ओल्डेस्ट प्रोफेशंस. अगर आप देखो तो जब से लोगों ने घर बनाना सीखा, तब से आर्किटेक्चर ये जो चीज़ है ये बनती आई है. पुराने ज़माने में बड़े बड़े बिल्डिंग्स बनते थे, टेम्पल्स बनते थे, मॉस्क बनते थे, पैलेसेस बनते थे. फिर उसके बाद मॉडर्न बिल्डिंग्स बनने लगे, अब ऑफिसेज और आईटी पार्क्स बनते हैं. तो ये जो है हर इरा का, हर सिविलाइजेशन का ये एक अचीवमेंट होता है. तो चाहे वो आप ग्रीक सिविलाइजेशन देख लो, या इस्लामिक सिविलाइजेशन देख लो, रोमन सिविलाइजेशन देख लो, आप कोई भी सिविलाइजेशन का जो आर्किटेक्चर है वो उनका एक बिल्ट symbol होता है. So that is why architecture is very important. Apart from the functionality that it provides, architecture जो है वो culture का एक symbol हो जाता है basically. So you know, again, you know, this very briefly अगर कुछ questions होगा तो we'll take it. So that is what is architecture is basically. It is not purely buildings, but it is much more beyond buildings. It is a thought that you have to put into architecture. Now, in India ka situation, if you see, you know, the construction industry in India itself employs over 30 million people, and you know, has a total asset worth of 200 billion rupees. So it's a pretty big industry, the construction and real estate industry in India, and it is growing. It is growing in the last 10 years itself. In the last 10 to 15 years, it has been growing at an exponential rate. And you know, it's not going to slow down. I mean, of course, there'll be cycles, but then overall, the Indian construction industry is on a rapid rise, and it also contributes to 5% of the nation's GDP, which is in itself it's a big contribution too. But in spite of this, if you see, the number of architects in India are only about 90,000 registered architects in India, which is minuscule, very small compared to the requirement that is there in the market. तो market में बहुत ज़्यादा architects, बहुत ज़्यादा professionals की ज़रूरत है, because industry जो है काफ़ी rise कर रही है. Colleges भी पिछले सालों में कुछ हुए हैं, we are getting more up, but the reality is कि जो requirement है हमारी, जो industry की requirement है, we need at least 1 lakh architects coming out every year. Based on the size of the industry, we need 1 lakh architects coming out every year. But supply kitna ho raha hai? Only 20%. So 20,000 architects are coming out every year, jabki requirement hai 1 lakh architects. So definitely there is a huge gap there which needs to be filled. We need more architects. So the bottom line is we need more architects. We need more architecture colleges. We need more professionals who come out and graduate from architecture and start practicing and you know, becoming an active part of the industry for the growth of the country and growth of the nation. ये छोटा सा graph you will see on the right hand side. It shows the you know, within this profession itself, it's one of the few professions where the ratio between female and male is not very vast. You know, so in architecture there are almost 40% who are females and 60% who are males. So there's an equal opportunity for females also to get into this field. It's not a field where it's only for the males, because it's, you know, there's construction and cement and site and steel, but you know, there are equally, you know, a good number of women architects out there who are playing a very important role in the profession. So that's the sort of the need of an architect, you know, कि बहुत ज़रूरत है इंडिया में architects की और अच्छे architects की, because काम है उतना. Who is an architect? Basically, architect होता क्या है, and then how is it different from a civil engineer? Civil engineer भी तो वो काम करता है, structural engineer भी तो building बनाता है, steel बनाता है, contractor भी तो building बनाता है, builder भी तो building बनाता है. तो ये आर्किटेक्ट का रोल क्या होता है, ये आर्किटेक्ट होता क्या है? सो बेसिकली आर्किटेक्ट जो है, इट्स आर्किटेक्चर इज अ प्रोफेशन, जस्ट लाइक यू हैव अ डॉक्टर, जस्ट लाइक यू हैव अ चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट, जस्ट लाइक यू हैव अ लॉयर, कंपनी सेक्रेटरी, ये सारे जैसे ये आर्किटेक्चर भी एक प्रोफेशन है. एंड ये प्रोफेशन किस लिए इसको प्रोफेशन माना जाता है? बिकॉज फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल इट हैज अ स्पेशलाइज्ड एजुकेशन एंड ट्रेनिंग. सो एक आर्किटेक्ट बनने के लिए आपको एक स्पेशल ट्रेनिंग लेनी होती है, आपको एक स्पेशल आर्किटेक्चर कॉलेज में आपको उसका एजुकेशन लेना होता है, एक स्पेसिफिक पढ़ाई है, एक स्पेसिफिक एजुकेशन है जो आपको यू हैव टू अंडरगो. सेकेंडली, देयर इज अ लाइसेंसिंग एंड गवर्निंग बॉडी जो काउंसिल ऑफ आर्किटेक्ट्स है. जैसे मेडिकल प्रोफेशन का भी एक मेडिकल काउंसिल होता है, डेंटल काउंसिल होता है, लॉयर्स का बार होता है, who actually give you a license to say that okay, now you are an architect, you are qualified, now you can go out and practice as an architect, you can call yourself an architect. Or thirdly, ये सारे जो प्रोफेशन का इसका एक प्रोफेशनल कोड ऑफ कंडक्ट होता है. सो वंस यू बिकम एन आर्किटेक्ट, यू हैव टू adhere to a professional code of conduct which is laid down by the Council of Architects India. So उसमें लिखा होता है कि अब आर्किटेक्ट बन गए हो, अब रजिस्टर्ड आर्किटेक्ट हो, तो अब ये चीजें कर सकते हो, ये चीजें नहीं कर सकते हो, ये चीजें एथिकल है, ये चीजें अनएथिकल है, दिस इज अलाउड, दिस इज इलीगल। तो ये सारी जो कोड है वो फॉलो करना होता है। सो बेसिकली जब एक बार आर्किटेक्ट बन जाओ तो एक तो आपको एक ट्रेनिंग लेनी है, सेकेंडली एक काउंसिल से रजिस्टर्ड होना है, और एक बार रजिस्टर हो जाओ तो देन यू हैव टू स्टिक टू अ प्रोफेशनल कोड ऑफ कंडक्ट। सो इट इज वेरी सिमिलर टू वेदर यू सी अ लॉयर, उनके भी एक गवर्निंग बॉडी होती है, एक लाइसेंसिंग बॉडी होती है, हर कोई लॉयर नहीं बन सकता। वैसे ही एक आर्किटेक्ट्स भी होते हैं जो which is in the bounds of a professional authority. सेकेंडली आर्किटेक्चर जो सिविल इंजीनियरिंग से डिफरेंट कैसे होता है, ये बिल्डिंग्स तो ये भी बनाते हैं, तो आर्किटेक्चर में जो होता है, ये जैसे मैंने पहले बताया था कि व्हाट इज आर्किटेक्चर। सो आर्किटेक्चर इज बियॉन्ड जस्ट स्टील, सीमेंट एंड बिल्डिंग एंड ब्रिक्स। बेसिकली ये आप क्या कर रहे हो कि ये एक डिजाइन सॉल्यूशंस दे रहे हो। तो कोई भी एक लैंड है, उसका एक क्रिएटिव सॉल्यूशन जब आप देते हो कि वो कैसे फॉर्म यूज किया जाए, उसमें कैसे साइंटिफिक मेथड्स, कैसे कंस्ट्रक्शन मटेरियल्स उसमें कैसे यूज होके वो जो रिक्वायरमेंट है क्लाइंट की, उसे क्रिएटिवली एक फॉर्म देना, ये आर्किटेक्ट का काम होता है। सिविल इंजीनियर भी इज अ पार्ट ऑफ द टीम, बट दे डू समथिंग स्लाइटली डिफरेंटली। स्ट्रक्चरल इंजीनियर्स थोड़ा और कुछ अलग काम करते हैं, कॉन्ट्रैक्टर्स उनका अलग काम होता है। आर्किटेक्ट का काम होता है टू प्रोवाइड द creative design solutions using the knowledge that he has on materials, on forms and the artistic principles. तो ये सारी चीजें बेसिकली एक आर्किटेक्ट करता है। एंड जैसे आपने एक अगर लॉयर को हायर किया, द लॉयर इज एक्टिंग ऑन बिहाफ ऑफ यू, यू बिकम द क्लाइंट ऑफ द लॉयर, और लॉयर आपके लिए जो लीगल जो लेटर्स है वो सब ड्राफ्ट करता है। वैसे ही आर्किटेक्ट क्लाइंट के ऑन बिहाफ ऑफ द क्लाइंट ये सारे टीम को, वो पूरे प्रोजेक्ट को वो कोऑर्डिनेट करता है और ये लीड करता है। तो भले ही वो हर चीज ना कर रहा हो, लेकिन वो उसका जो रोल होता है वो सारे बाकी के जो इंजीनियर्स हैं, जो टीम है, उनको लीड करना और कोऑर्डिनेट करना पूरे प्रोजेक्ट को, और जो क्लाइंट का जो विजन है उसको एक फॉर्म देना, ये होता है आर्किटेक्ट का काम। सो बेसिकली थोड़ा सा अगर आपको आइडिया आ जाए, इससे थोड़ा सा और कॉम्प्लेक्स होता है, मगर आई एम ट्राइंग टू सिंप्लीफाई इट सो दैट आपको समझ में आ जाए कि आर्किटेक्ट फाइनली करता क्या है। बेसिकली आर्किटेक्ट्स करते हैं क्या है? सो बेसिकली इट इज एन इंटरडिसिप्लिनरी फील्ड। इसमें मैथमेटिक्स भी है, साइंस है, आर्ट है, टेक्नोलॉजी है, सोशल साइंसेस, पॉलिटिक्स, हिस्ट्री, साइकोलॉजी, सोशियोलॉजी, ये सारी चीजों की जो स्टडी करके आपको एक आर्किटेक्ट जो है इसको एक बिल्डिंग डिजाइन करनी होती है। उसे ये सारी चीजों की जो जानकारी है, जो नॉलेज है, वो होना चाहिए। चाहे वो इन डेप्थ नॉलेज ना हो, मगर ये सारी चीजों के बारे में एक मालूमात उन्हें होनी चाहिए। तो तभी जाके वो क्रिएटिव सॉल्यूशंस, जो जितना एक आर्किटेक्ट को ये चीजों के बारे में ज्यादा मालूमात होगी, वो एक और अच्छी बिल्डिंग कॉन्सेप्चुलाइज कर सकेगा, उसकी क्रिएटिविटी है वो और अच्छी हो सकेगी। सो बेसिकली इट इज इंटरडिसिप्लिनरी फील्ड। तो ये ऐसे नहीं कि एक ही चीज सीख लो, इसमें आप जितनी चीजों, आप जितना आपका जो दायरा है वो बढ़ाओगे, जितना आपका जो बाउंड्री है, if you widen it, you'll become a better architect. So it's an interdisciplinary field. So people who have that sort of skill, कि वो थोड़ा सा abstract सोच सकते हैं, थोड़ा सा मैथमेटिक्स में भी इंटरेस्ट है, साइंस में भी इंटरेस्ट है, आर्ट में भी इंटरेस्ट है, पॉलिटिक्स में भी इंटरेस्ट है, सोशल साइंस में इंटरेस्ट है, टेक्नोलॉजी में इंटरेस्ट है, तो एक आर्किटेक्ट के लिए ये सारे इंटरेस्ट होने जरूरी है। जरूरी नहीं मतलब अगर होंगे तो बेटर है। बेसिकली लैंड सर्वेज करता है, सो आर्किटेक्ट इज ऑल्सो रिक्वायर्ड टू हैव नॉलेज अबाउट सर्वेइंग, कि लैंड को कैसे मेजर किया जाए, उसके कैसे वहाँ पे इंश्योरेंस के रिक्वायरमेंट के लिए जो उसके वैल्यूएशन है वो काम करता है। टेक्निकल एडवाइस देता है, नॉट जस्ट फॉर द बिल्डिंग्स, बट कभी कभी आर्किटेक्ट को बुलाया जाता है बड़े बड़े शहरों के एडवाइस करने के लिए, कहीं पे हाईवे बन रहा हो, कहीं पे टाउनशिप बन रही हो, कहीं पे कोई हिस्टोरिकल मॉन्यूमेंट हो जिसको रिस्टोर करना है, कि वहाँ पे इंडिया में जैसे बहुत सारे पुराने मॉन्यूमेंट्स हैं जो विच आर इन वेरी बैड कंडीशन, वी हैव नॉट मेंटेन्ड देम, तो उनको जो रिस्टोर करने का जो काम है वो भी आर्किटेक्ट्स करते हैं। और फाइनली इट इज एन आउटडोर एज वेल एज एन इंडोर वर्क। तो यहाँ पे आपको स्टूडियो में बैठ के, ऑफिस में बैठ के, कंप्यूटर के सामने काम भी करना है, डिजाइनिंग भी करना है, और आपको साइट पे जाके वो बिल्डिंग जब वो असलियत में बन रही है साइट पे, वो जाके वो भी आपको सुपरवाइज करना है। तो यहाँ पे इंडोर एंड आउटडोर दोनों काम होता है आर्किटेक्चर में। सो आपको टीम्स के साथ भी काम करना है, वहाँ पे बहुत सारे लोग होंगे, उनके साथ काम करना है। कभी कभार आपको अगर क्रिएटिव काम करना है, थोड़ा अकेले में काम करना है, तो आप थोड़ा जो काम होता है वो आर्किटेक्ट्स का वो अकेले बैठ के सोचना भी होता है, फिर वो टीम के साथ आके मिलजुल के सबके साथ वो कोलैबोरेटिव काम भी करते हैं, और इंडोर काम भी है और आउटडोर काम भी है। तो ये इस तरीके का एक आपको एक जनरल आइडिया देने के लिए कि मतलब किस तरीके का काम होता है आर्किटेक्ट्स का। एक इंटरडिसिप्लिनरी काम भी है, अलग अलग स्केल पे भी काम करते हैं, मतलब स्केल इन द सेंस कि आप बिल्डिंग के लेवल पे भी काम करोगे, इंटीरियर के लेवल पे भी काम करोगे, शहर के लेवल पे भी काम कर सकोगे, और अंदर और बाहर इंडोर एंड आउटडोर दोनों काम बेसिकली एक आर्किटेक्ट करता है। अब आर्किटेक्ट, what do they design, what sort of buildings do they design, so housing to hai, housing is a very important part of every country, every city. So definitely housing is a big component of what architects do. In India there is a if you are aware, if you have been reading the newspapers, is a big stress on affordable housing policies. So government is making many policies regarding urban poor and affordable housing. So housing एक बड़ा sector हो जाता है जहाँ पे architects can play a big role. Office buildings, we design office buildings nowadays. There are so many office buildings, IT parks. So this requires architects to come in and design. Educational buildings, whether it is schools, K through 12 schools, or you have colleges and universities, large campuses. This also are a big component of architectural design. Retail and shopping, nowadays you have malls, you have shopping, you have multiplexes, all of this entertainment, that again requires an architectural inputs. Hospitals, ये भी architects करते हैं. Hospitals तो अभी आपने देखा होगा कि ये कोविड सिचुएशन में हॉस्पिटल्स बहुत ज़्यादा रिक्वायर्ड थे, और बहुत सारे कंट्रीज में उन्होंने बहुत जल्द ही within a matter of few days sometimes they have erected new hospitals. तो ये काम किसने किया? ये किया, this was done by architects basically, and not only architects of course, but architects were the leaders in designing these hospitals. तो इसमें of course बाकी सारे consultants होते हैं, बाकी सारे experts होते हैं, but architects also play a big role in designing these hospitals. And hospitals will become a big part of the future of many countries as well. Hotels and hospitalities, so 5-star hotels, आपके resorts होते हैं, आपके convention centers होते हैं, ये भी काफी बनते हैं, यहाँ पर भी architects design करते हैं. Transportation buildings, airports, railway stations, bus depots, ये सारी buildings हैं. Research and technology के buildings हैं. Sports and entertainment है, whether it is a stadium, whether it is an indoor stadium, whether it is a sports complex, ये सारी चीजें भी architects होते हैं. Religious buildings, whether it is mosques, whether it's temples, whether it's synagogues, or any other religious buildings, government buildings, and sometimes even bridges. So ये सारी चीजें जो है यहाँ पे architect plays a role. Sometimes कुछ architects जो होते हैं, they get expertise in one or two of these sectors and they become experts. So कुछ architects होते हैं जो they are experts in hospital design. तो वो लोग बहुत ही they are the, जब भी hospital की कुछ जरूरत होती है तो लोग उनके पास जाते हैं hospital design करने के लिए. Some become experts in housing, some become experts in religious buildings, some become experts in retail and shopping, some take on 2 or 3 of these as their expertise. So there's a vast area of buildings that architects design. But ये डिजाइनिंग तो होता है, but architects को hire कौन करता है? Architects खुद ही तो जाके बिल्डिंग नहीं बना सकते, उनको somebody has to be the producer, somebody has to have the money, somebody has to have the land. तब जाके वो लोग बोलेंगे ठीक है, अभी now we need a consultant, we need a designer, we need an architect to build it. तो architect खुद तो project बनाते नहीं है, so architects are always looking out for clients कि उन्हें कोई उनके services के लिए hire करे. तब जाके तो किन लोगों को जरूरत होती है architects की? एक तो one is private developers, so you have a lot of residential developers, all the big names in India, all the housing projects that you see, all the mall projects that you see are developed by private developers, and they hire, so they are the people who buy the land, who do all the funding and investment, and then they go out and look for architects and engineering experts to come and design the project for them. Government agencies, there are a lot of government agencies who also hire architects directly. So if there is a government project going on, whether it is a public building or a government building, then they hire directly architects to, design buildings for them. Corporate organizations. So if there are, big companies in India, there are so many big companies now, big corporates who are out there, who directly hire architects to design projects for their, it may be their own headquarter building, it may be their factories, it may be, housing for their employees, whatever. So these corporates, they hire architects. Fourthly, it could be trusts. So educational trusts or non-governmental organizations who are doing work for, the people in general. So they may be building a school or they may be building a hospital. So these are the trusts. So it's a group of people who have come together. They hire architects to design buildings for them. It could be individual business owners. So if somebody has a small business, somebody wants to build a factory or somebody wants to build a small office, and he's an individual business owner, he's not a private developer, he's not a corporate. So these people also hire architects. It could be individual homeowners. किसी को घर बनाना है अपना, किसी को अपने घर का इंटीरियर करवाना है, किसी को एक छोटा फार्म हाउस बनवाना है, या अपने फैमिली के लिए एक छोटा सा घर बनवाना है. तो वो लोग, वो इंडिविजुअल जो होम ओनर्स है, वो भी हायर करते हैं आर्किटेक्ट्स को. सो देयर आर, ये सारी लोगों को बेसिकली आर्किटेक्ट्स की जरूरत होती है. ये लोग आर्किटेक्ट्स को हायर करते हैं बेसिकली. सो एक बार once you become an architect, what are the skills that you typically need? तो एक तो ये होता है कि डिजाइन स्किल्स है. डेफिनेटली यू शुड हैव डिजाइन स्किल्स. नाउ व्हाट इज डिजाइन, इसके ऊपर तो ये एक बड़ा और एक 2 घंटे का सेमिनार हो सकता है, बट आई जस्ट स्टिक टू व्हाट इज डिजाइन स्किल्स. तो एक डिजाइन स्किल्स होता है, उनको टेक्निकल नॉलेज होनी चाहिए कंस्ट्रक्शन के बारे में. सो डिजाइन जो होता है वो कलर स्कीम्स, फॉर्म, वो दिखने में कैसा लग रहा है, जो एस्थेटिक्स ऑफ अ बिल्डिंग, दैट कम्स इनटू द डिजाइन स्किल्स. हाउ द बिल्डिंग फंक्शंस, द रिक्वायरमेंट्स ऑफ अ बिल्डिंग, द स्पेशल organization of a building, that comes in the design skills. Technical skills mein, the architect should be aware of the construction technology, the materials, the calculation, the engineering of a building, how these things. So हमने एक डिजाइन तो कर दिया पेपर पे, मगर वो कैसे बन रहा है, कैसे बनेगा वो बिल्डिंग, उसकी भी नॉलेज होनी चाहिए आर्किटेक्ट को. बना तो दिया, लेकिन वो कॉस्ट के अगर बाहर जा रहा है, बहुत ही महंगा हो गया, then again it won't work. So apart from the design skills and the technical knowledge, the architect should also be well versed with the costing of a project and the scheduling of a project and the project economics. कि ये प्रोजेक्ट का वैल्यूएशन कैसे किया जाए, उसकी कॉस्टिंग कैसे निकाली जाए, ये भी एक स्किल होता है आर्किटेक्ट का. अब ये तो हो गया कि प्रोजेक्ट रिलेटेड, मगर इट्स ऑल्सो बिजनेस एट द एंड ऑफ द डे. तो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स कैसे फॉर्म करते हैं, एग्रीमेंट्स कैसे फॉर्म करते हैं, बिलिंग कैसे करते हैं, बिलिंग को अप्रूव कैसे करते हैं, ये सारी चीजें भी आर्किटेक्ट के परव्यू के अंदर आ जाती हैं बेसिकली. सो दे आर आल्सो अ पार्ट ऑफ द आर्किटेक्ट स्किल्स. सो ही शुड बी वेल वर्स्ड विद हाउ कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स आर रिटन, what are the clauses of a contract, how to amend them, how to raise a bill. And at the end of the day, whatever city that you work in, it will have its own building bylaws. It will have its own FSI or FAR norms. It will have its own rules of when I say codes and regulations, is the government rules of how the building. So the architect has to be very well versed with the building regulations also. So these are a very general skill sets that if you're looking to become an architect, this will be what will be required or expected from you if you want to be a good architect. So at the end of the day, the bubble diagram, the Venn diagram that I've shown at the end, it's a very good thing. So it's a combination of your design skills, it's a combination of your technical skills, and a combination of your business skills. So architecture ये तीनों skills का एक combination है कि आपके पास design skills भी होने चाहिए, technical skills भी होने चाहिए, और business skills भी होने चाहिए. Then you become a good architect. Apart from these skills, there is software or soft skills जो हम बोलते हैं. So basically architecture में आजकल everything is done on computers, everything is IT and related. So a lot of young architects now, I graduated 20 years ago. So I come from a generation where we were still using pen and pencil and a T-square to draw. We were not using, just when I graduated, when I came out of college, that's when AutoCAD was just beginning. And now I do all my drawings on AutoCAD and BIM, but I come from a generation which was not connected. But now when I see everything, all the offices are completely on computers. So these are the skills that for an architect will be required. You'll need to know AutoCAD, you'll need to know Revit, you know, all the BIM software. Then in presentations करने के लिए Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator, you'll need to have a very good sketching hand. You'll have to have good photography skills. And apart from that, of course, you know, the MS Word, Excel. So these are the sort of the software skills. And every year I see there's some of the other update in the market in terms of these softwares that are coming up in the industry for the building and construction sector. And I think, you know, it's very important to keep abreast with all of these advancements that are coming in the market. Soft skills, जिसको अगर हम बोलते हैं, वो as architect, you'll need to have very good communication skills, because at the end of the day, an architect, whatever he designs, he or she designs, has to present it to the client, get his or her approval, and then, you know, convince that the client that this is a very good solution, right? This is that what you have designed meets the client's requirement, and at the same time is good for the environment, is good for the community, it's within cost, and all of these things that, you know, that you've thought about while designing, you have to be able to communicate it with people, right? So you'll need very good verbal skills, very good written skills, and at the same time very good graphical skills, because, you know, at the end of the day, the drawings that the architect makes is the language of the architects. So the graphical skills also become very important. The architects also need to have very good presentation skills. They need to be updated on a regular basis on the trends in the current real estate and construction industry, and all the materials that, you know, every year there are some new materials that are being launched in the market. So continuously being updated. So ऐसे नहीं कि आर्किटेक्चर आपने एक बार कर लिया, 5 साल का कोर्स कर लिया, अब आपका आर्किटेक्चर हो गया, वैसे नहीं होता. So all these professionals, whether they are lawyers or doctors or CAs, you know, the learning is throughout your career, because you have to continuously update yourself to be a competent and a qualified architect. So, you know, continuously improving yourself in terms of your knowledge, in terms of your skills, becomes an integral part of becoming a good architect. So ये सारी चीजें तो है, but ये सारी चीजें आप कहाँ सीखते हो? आप सीखते हो आर्किटेक्चर स्कूल में. So you have to take admission into an architecture school. जब आर्किटेक्चर स्कूल में आप, या आर्किटेक्चर कॉलेज बोल लो या जो भी है, बट टिपिकली आर्किटेक्चर स्कूल बोला जाता है पहले से, इसलिए मैंने वर्ड आर्किटेक्चर स्कूल लिखा हुआ है. तो आर्किटेक्चर स्कूल का जो में आपको क्या क्या सिखाया जाता है. सो बेसिकली आपको वहाँ पे जो ग्राफिक डिजाइन है या बेसिक डिजाइन है उसकी ट्रेनिंग दी जाती है, आर्ट हिस्ट्री एंड एप्रिसिएशन. सो आपको पेंटिंग्स के बारे में, स्कल्पचर के बारे में, ग्रीक हिस्ट्री, इंडियन हिस्ट्री, इस्लामिक हिस्ट्री, यू नो, ईस्टर्न हिस्ट्री, यूरोपियन हिस्ट्री, ये सारी चीजें आपको जो आर्ट के रिलेटेड जो है वो आपको पता होनी चाहिए. बिकॉज एट द एंड ऑफ द डे आर्किटेक्चर इज अ कॉम्बिनेशन ऑफ आर्ट एंड साइंस एंड टेक्नोलॉजी. तो आपको एक आर्ट एंड एट द सेम टाइम सोशियोलॉजी, बिकॉज एज एन आर्किटेक्ट आपको दुनिया में क्या चल रहा है, हाउ आर पीपल लिविंग नाउअडेज, ये आपको अच्छी जानकारी होनी चाहिए. तो सोशियोलॉजी भी एक पार्ट हो जाता है आर्किटेक्चरल स्टडी का. आर्किटेक्चरल हिस्ट्री, तो अगर आपने सीखा कि पहले कैसे चीजें बनती है, तो आप वो मिस्टेक्स फिर से ना दोहराओगे. तो एक आर्किटेक्चरल हिस्ट्री होती है. आर्किटेक्चरल डिजाइन आपको सिखाया जाता है, बिल्डिंग कंस्ट्रक्शन सिखाया जाता है आपको कि कैसे मटेरियल्स यूज होता है, कैसे आरसीसी बनता है, कैसे वुड कंस्ट्रक्शन होता है, तो उसमें डिटेल्स कैसे होते हैं, वो सारी चीजें सिखाई जाती है. मटेरियल्स एंड मेथड्स ऑफ एप्लीकेशन, कि ब्रिक हुआ, सीमेंट, वाटर, पेंट, जितने भी मटेरियल्स है, बिल्डिंग मटेरियल्स है, उसके बारे में, उसकी केमिस्ट्री क्या होती है, उसका कॉम्पोजिशन क्या होता है, उसका एप्लीकेशन मेथड क्या होता है, लैंड का सर्वे कैसे करना है, वो सिखाया जाता है. एट द सेम टाइम बिल्डिंग सर्विसेज जो होती है, कि जो यू नो इलेक्ट्रिकल और प्लम्बिंग और एचवैक, इसके तो इंजीनियर्स अलग होते हैं. इलेक्ट्रिकल इंजीनियर्स होते हैं, प्लम्बिंग इंजीनियर्स होते हैं, एचवैक इंजीनियर्स होते हैं. बट एज एन आर्किटेक्ट यू आर लीडिंग एंड कोऑर्डिनेटिंग द प्रोजेक्ट. तो एज एन आर्किटेक्ट architect has to have a knowledge about these things, because at the end of the day ये सारा project एक साथ किसे लाना है, एक architect को. So भले ही वो इलेक्ट्रिकल डिजाइन जो है डिटेल में कोई इलेक्ट्रिकल इंजीनियर कर रहा है या प्लम्बिंग इंजीनियर कर रहा है या मैकेनिकल इंजीनियर कर रहा है, एट द सेम टाइम वो बिल्डिंग का जो ओवरऑल विजन है वो तो आर्किटेक्ट के हाथ में है. सो ही और शी हैज टू हैव अ गुड नॉलेज अबाउट दीज building services and engineering as well. Costing and valuation, of course, landscape design, urban design, building bylaws, construction drawings, ये सारी चीजें आपको आर्किटेक्चर स्कूल में सिखाई जाती हैं, जो 5 साल का कोर्स होता है बेसिकली. तो बाय द एंड ऑफ इट यू आर जितनी भी चीजें मैंने आपको बताई ये आपको आर्किटेक्चर स्कूल में आपको सिखाई जाती है. सो इट इज एक्सपेक्टेड दैट एट द एंड ऑफ द 5 years you you come up with all the skills that are required and you can start grooming yourself. Architecture education, if you see, it is basically you do it after 10+2. Now I'll just put a disclaimer over here. Now every year there are certain changes that are being made in the admission processes of architecture. Now I'm not so much in touch with the admission processes. I know there are certain entrance exams, the NATA exam and other entrance exams that need to be given at this stage. But then regarding the admission process, I may not be able to answer your questions to the point, but I'll just give you an overall idea about what is the journey, education journey of an architect, basically. So 10+2 आपने कर लिया, mostly science से किया होगा तो better है. B.Arch में आप admission लोगे, whether it is through an entrance exam. 5 years का course होता है, basically B.Arch, which itself is a pretty long course. Within that 5-year course, there is a I think now 1 year. Some colleges have, some universities have 1 year of professional training. Some universities have 9 months of professional training. Some universities have 6 months of professional training. So depending on which university, which board you graduate under, वो 5 years complete करने के बाद you get yourself registered with the Council of Architects, COA. और उसके बाद you can start practicing, you can start working, you can start calling yourself as an architect. But at the same time, आपको अगर लग रहा है कि आपको और आगे पढ़ाई करनी चाहिए, ये 5 साल, if you think that B.Arch, so many people are doing, but I want to be a step ahead, I want to increase my knowledge and my value a little bit more, then you can do an M.Arch. And M.Arch 2 साल का होता है. Of course, M.Arch usually people who are interested in teaching and at the same time practice. They take up a certain specialization when they do M.Arch, and they become an expert in certain branch of architecture. So basically, after M.Arch also you can practice. You can practice even after B.Arch. There's no issue. Some people want to get completely into teaching and research. They are more interested in the pedagogy of architecture and the academics. So PhD कर सकते हैं, काफी architects करते हैं आजकल PhD. PhD can also be done while you're working. It can take anything between 3 and 5 years. But then after PhD, typically you are more into research and training. So yeah, a very quick glance at what architectural education does. After you graduate from architect, what are job prospects? आप कहाँ पे काम कर सकते हो? Who sort of will hire you? So you can either get a job in an architectural consultancy firm. So there might be an architect or a partner firm or a small firm who's doing architecture projects, and they continuously hire young architects to be a part of their studio, to be a part of the team, to assist the principal architect to design projects. Which is a very good way to learn, because it's sort of hands-on learning when you're going through this architectural consultancy firms. So that is one aspect. There are various government departments, whether it's municipal corporations, whether it is the public works department, whether the Ministry of Housing, or any other government department which is involved in construction or real estate or development. There's MMRDA. Sort of these redevelopment agencies are there. So they hire architects also. So that the government departments is again a place where there may be job and career prospects. Private developers. So private developers nowadays, there are so many big developers. They have their in-house teams of architects, engineers, and everybody. So private developers is one more place where architects can find jobs. Contractors, there are some of the big contractors, they need architects in-house to sort of coordinate their work and sort of conduct the site work that's required. So contractors is again a place where architects can start doing getting the experience and start working. Starting your own consultancy practice. A lot of architects, they're very confident. They think that, okay, I've got enough experience now and I'm ready to start on my own. Whether they're some of their friends or their relatives might already be into the practice and they are quite confident that, okay, now I'm ready to start and launch on my own. So you can start your own company as well, even right out of college. A lot of students do that. You can do that after you have worked in any of these other companies for a brief period of time, and then after gaining that experience and that confidence, you can start your own company as well, and then grow it. You can also teach. Many architects, they graduate and then they teach, and they take teaching as a full-time profession also. And nowadays it's paying well. So teaching is also an option. A lot of architects, while they are doing their self-practice, they're having their own company, they teach on the side as well. So they're part-time or visiting faculty in certain colleges. You can also take up research in any field. So research is another career prospects that architects can sort of look at. There are certain options that you can look for beyond B.Arch. Say after B.Arch, if you want to do something more, then there's of course M.Arch on the left hand side if you see. So that's specialization in the architecture field. You can do an interior design, you can do a specialization in urban design, which I have done. You can become a landscape architect, you can do healthcare design, so you become specialized in hospitals, building services or heritage conservation. So these are all M.Arch related. After B.Arch, if you want to get into the urban planning field, then you can do an M.Plan in urban planning or town planning. You can do transportation planning. Some architects, they are more interested in the project management and real estate management part rather than the designing part. So a lot of people after B.Arch, they either take up project management or real estate management, and they sort of slightly change the direction of their career, which is also quite prevalent nowadays. Then apart from that, on the right hand side, there's a whole list of allied fields that architects can get into even after B.Arch. So you can become a lighting designer, you can become an industrial design or product designer, like furniture design, product design. A lot of architects do that. You can become a lighting designer, you can become an architectural photographer, you can get into graphic design, signage design, you can get into production design. Now, production design is basically set design. So, nowadays for a lot of these theaters and movies and TV shows, they need a production designer. So somebody who does all the production design. So that's where architects can, a lot of architects get into that role as well. You can even, a lot of architects, become writers and journalists. A lot of, they become teachers and professions, like I said earlier. Some are interestingly getting into video game design because, designing a video game also requires most of the skills that are required to become an architect. So, video game design is, again, a lot of people after B.Arch, some are getting into video game design. Installation artist, so, you can get into sort of installation art also after your B.Arch. So that's a brief idea. But what about the future? Is there any future in architecture? Because there's so many things are going online now. So many things are becoming IT, and there's Internet of Things, and where does architecture fit in? And in fact, the future of architecture is very interesting. And even with sort of 20 years of my experience in this field, I'm still more excited for my next 20 years of working in this field, because there's something new I see happening every 5 years. And with BIM and virtual design and AR VR coming into picture, I think that will have a big impact on how architecture as a profession is being practiced on how buildings are being designed. 3D printing, I don't know if you've heard about this technology, that entire buildings get printed using 3D printing technology within a matter of minutes. There's something, a concept called as intelligent or smart buildings, which are completely connected to a network, and it's sort of senses, a lot of sensors built into the building, which is again connected to IoT. So there's a whole, when the IT sector and architecture and building and design, they all come together, that's going to change the nature of how buildings are designed and how the profession of architecture is practiced. So for a lot of young architects who are trying to get into this field, I would also urge you to look at this future कि ये आगे की बिल्डिंग हम कैसे कर सकते हैं. अब तक तो हम ऐसे डिजाइन कर रहे थे बिल्डिंग, ये सारी चीजें हम अब ऐसे डिजाइन किया है हमने, लेकिन अभी जो आगे जाके धीरे धीरे हम देख रहे हैं कि जो बिल्डिंग डिजाइन करने का जो तरीका है वो बहुत चेंज हो रहा है, बहुत चेंज हो रहा है. मैकेनिज्म्स चेंज हो रहे हैं, रोबोटिक कंस्ट्रक्शन अब धीरे धीरे आप देखेंगे, ये बहुत ही जल्द आने वाली है ये सारी चीजें. सो इट्स वेरी एक्साइटिंग एट द एंड ऑफ द डे. The entire field of the profession of architecture is going to be very, very, very interesting in terms of how things are happening at the end of the day. So that's sort of a brief idea about architecture. I put my contact information, so if anybody needs more information about the profession, about opportunities in the profession, or probably if you have not understood things in the presentation, you can definitely contact me. I've put my information up here. Having said that, at the end, before we move on to our Q&A section, I'll come back to myself and a little bit about my journey. I come from a family which did not have anybody who was an architect in the family, and I'm the first architect. And when I became an architect, or when I was doing architecture, my family members couldn't even pronounce the word architect or architecture properly. Now they can, but so these sort of things shouldn't discourage you from doing that. I also come from, when I was growing up, I did not come from a very wealthy family background. I came from a very humble family. My father was a teacher, so we didn't have a lot of family savings in terms of to go abroad for further education. But my father was very keen that I do that, because he, during his when he was doing his MSc in Mumbai and wanted to pursue his PhD in the US, he couldn't go because of lack of funding, and he didn't want that same thing to happen to me. So I in spite of the family conditions, I took this chance and I got a scholarship. So a part of it was scholarship, a part of it was funding that I got from NGOs and social groups. And finally, I went there and I studied. And even when I was studying there, I was in fact working part-time throughout my education to make ends meet, because unlike people who are very well funded and go abroad for education, I was not very well funded. So I had to earn very quickly and start earning. So and that's what working abroad and living abroad taught me, was the idea of dignity of labor. That कि ऐसे नहीं कि अगर आप आर्किटेक्ट हो या आपने भी मास्टर्स कर लिया है, आपने अभी फॉरेन एजुकेशन ले लिया है, तो आपने बस आसमान छू लिया, now you are nobody can touch you. In fact, it makes you more humble कि दुनिया में ऐसे भी लोग हैं जिनके पास अपॉर्चुनिटीज नहीं होती basically, and then it's very important to, no matter what you achieve in life, कि अब भी बहुत कुछ अचीव करना बाकी है. Basically, there's a lot more to achieve, there's a lot more to do. Now, in spite of my 20 years experience, I think it's literally nothing, because there's so many people who have done so much for the nation, for the profession of architecture, for the community. And I'm just trying to see what I can do in my individual capacity. So that is something that should be remembered at the end of the day. Even when I was doing my B.Arch, मैंने आपको बताया था कि एक 9 महीने का या 1 साल का कुछ कॉलेजेस में होता है, एक इंटर्नशिप होता है. So that is the only requirement. But what I started, because right from my first year का जो first semester था, हमारा summer break था, I started working for an architect right from my first semester summer vacation. The summer vacation mein everybody was happy, but summer vacation mein I was working. And I made that a habit throughout my 5 years, that I used to work during my vacation time with architects in my city for a very small amount, for a very small stipend. But I used to get a lot of experience. Even during I was working, I was getting that experience. So by the end of it, I got that sort of confidence in me ki, I can do this. This is something that I have done it. Because a lot of times what happens is, after your education, when you get into the market, a lot of clients realize, a lot of employers realize that the basic skill sets that an architect should have after graduation are lacking in a student. And this is because the student hasn't been exposed to real life situations during the college time. और ये आर्किटेक्चर के लिए बहुत जरूरी हो जाता है, क्योंकि आर्किटेक्चर इज ऑल अबाउट रियलिटी, इट्स ऑल अबाउट गेटिंग द थिंग्स बिल्ट, इट्स अबाउट हैविंग द ग्राउंड नॉलेज कि वो कैसे होती है चीजें ऑन द ग्राउंड. तो ये बहुत ज्यादा जरूरी है. तो मुझे एक चीज जो हेल्प की है कि मैंने थ्रू आउट माई 5 years आई वॉज वर्किंग ऑन रियल प्रोजेक्ट्स एज वेल. तो मुझे वो दिक्कत नहीं हुई कि जो लर्निंग कर्व जो बोलते हैं ना, कि वो राइट आफ्टर कॉलेज आई वाज वेरी कॉन्फिडेंट दैट आई कैन डू वर्क ऑन माय ओन. So with that, I'll sort of end my part of the presentation, and I'll sort of open it up for any queries or questions that people might have.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Samir, for a wonderful presentation, and thank you for sharing all of your knowledge and your experiences in the field of architecture. Wonderful to hear from you and your biography in life, and it's so good to hear how the industry of architecture has evolved, and and it will continue to evolve, no doubt about it. And the participants who are listening to us, they are the ones who are the future, and they'll be the ones who will be taking things forward as well in terms of the industry as well. So what we will actually be doing now is we have a few questions that have come, so I'll quickly ask you those questions. So the first question, Dr. Nabi Rasool asked, please differentiate between engineering and architecture, if you.
Right. So, that's one of the second slide that I sort of explained, and I don't know if the participant was there during that slide, but I'll go back to that slide. It's a very interesting question.
I think that's a very big question that most of the people who civil mein wagera, yeah.
Right. So I'll first go to this slide, and the second point that I've mentioned here is, who is an architect? I'm saying provides design solutions for projects through creative use of materials, forms, and scientific and artistic principles. So basically, architect क्या करता है कि using the creativity, he designs these spaces to fit in within the client's requirements. So whether the budgetary requirements, whether the spatial requirements, whether aesthetic requirements, whether sociological requirements, so ये सारी चीजों को देख के he comes up with a solution. Whereas a civil engineer is not so much concerned, the profession or उनका जो काम है, they're not so much concerned with the way the building is looking or the way the spaces are working, whether it is fitting the budget or whether it works for the client in terms of its requirement. Their work is to make sure that the building stands. Of course, the architect is also responsible for that, but their main work is to make sure that structurally, strength-wise, stability wise the building is something that can be constructed and built, but वो क्या बनेगा, स्पेसेस कैसे डिजाइन होंगे, रूम्स कैसे बनेंगे, रूम्स की हाइट क्या होगी, विंडोज किस तरीके लगेंगे, मटेरियल्स किस तरीके का लगेगा, that is something that an architect decides, not the civil engineer.
Thank you. Next question. Can you suggest a school where monumental architecture is taught?
Monumental architecture, I'm not sure yet what does the participant mean by the term monumental architecture.
I think he's talking about heritage design and all of those. Maybe,
Okay,
I don't know,
monuments का जो होता है, ठीक है.
You were talking about installations, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. I had talked about heritage conservation. तो ऐसे बहुत सारे कॉलेजेस हैं जी, ये मास्टर्स होता है बेसिकली कि ये मॉन्यूमेंट्स तो अभी पहले बन गए, हिस्टोरिकल या हेरिटेज मॉन्यूमेंट्स हैं, ये तो पहले बना दिया उन्होंने, अब तो हम बोल रहे हैं तो मॉडर्न बिल्डिंग्स बना रहे हैं हम. अब अगर पहले जैसे बिल्डिंग्स बनाएंगे तो वो सही नहीं होगा. पहले तो राजा महाराजा और क्वींस और किंग्स जिस तरीके से रहते थे या जिस तरीके से उनका लाइफस्टाइल था, हम उस तरीके के बिल्डिंग्स तो अभी नहीं बना सकते हैं, उस तरीके के मटेरियल्स तो अभी है नहीं. आजकल तो हम सीमेंट और कंक्रीट और स्टील वगैरह और ब्रिक्स यूज करते हैं, या हमारा लाइफस्टाइल जो है वो अलग है, तो हमारे बिल्डिंग्स जो होते हैं वो आज के कल्चर के हिसाब से, आज के लोगों के रिक्वायरमेंट के हिसाब से बनते हैं. बट एट द सेम टाइम ये जो पहले जो हिस्टोरिकल मॉन्यूमेंट्स बने हैं पहले, ये इनकी वैल्यू बहुत है इन टर्म्स ऑफ हेरिटेज वैल्यू, सोशल वैल्यू, कल्चरल वैल्यू बहुत हाई है. सो वी वांट टू मेंटेन दैम. तो उनको हम मेंटेन रखते हैं और उनको कंजर्व करते हैं. कंजर्व मतलब उनको बचा के रखते हैं, उनके ऊपर ट्रीटमेंट करके, ताकि वो ज्यादा टूट ना जाए. और तो ये जो है ये एक B.Arch के बाद में अगर आपको इंटरेस्ट है मॉन्यूमेंट्स कंजर्वेशन का, तो वो एक अलग डिग्री होती है जिसे हेरिटेज कंजर्वेशन कहा जाता है बेसिकली. सो दैट्स the master's degree.
So archaeology and all that.
Archaeology is very different. Archaeology is exactly the opposite of what architecture is. आर्किटेक्चर में आप चीजें बनाते हो, आर्कियोलॉजी में आप चीजों को डिग करके आप देखते हो कि वो कैसे रहते थे लोग, उसमें क्रिएट नहीं करते, आप डिस्कवर करते हो. तो आर्कियोलॉजी इज कंप्लीटली डिफरेंट. इट्स अ डिफरेंट फील्ड ऑल टुगेदर. इट इज नॉट रिलेटेड टू आर्किटेक्चर.
Next question. Internet of Things and the architecture field. Future क्या है?
So अभी ये भी है, काफी बड़ा टॉपिक है, बट मैंने ब्रीफली थोड़ा सा मेंशन किया था. जैसे कि आजकल क्या हुआ है, that everything is IT. So even the architects, for example, I mentioned कि जब when I graduated, हम तो AutoCAD या कंप्यूटर पे ड्राइंग भी नहीं करते थे, हम तो हाथ से ड्राइंग करते थे. But slowly in the last 20 years, it has the way the drawings are made has gone way back. Now अभी तो डिजाइनिंग जो होता है वो वर्चुअल रियलिटी में काफी आर्किटेक्ट्स डिजाइनिंग करते हैं बेसिकली. सो दे वो AR VR के ग्लासेस होते हैं एंड देन उसके थ्रू वो सारा 3D में डिजाइनिंग होता है. तो ये जो इंटरनेट है और IT नेटवर्क्स हैं, they are impacting not just the way architects are designing, but also the way buildings are being constructed and being designed. तो इंटरनेट ऑफ थिंग्स, जैसे मैंने ये स्मार्ट बिल्डिंग्स के बारे में बात की कि बिल्डिंग्स आर कनेक्टेड विद सेंसर्स एंड with certain metering systems, कि आप यहाँ पे आपके ऐप से आप आपके बिल्डिंग में जो कुछ भी हो रहा है वो आप एडजस्ट कर सकते हो. कि आपने यहाँ पे आ गए और आपको लगा कि वो जो आपने AC बंद नहीं किया आपका, तो आप फोन के थ्रू आपने AC बंद कर दिया वहाँ का. या आपको लग रहा है कि आप घर पहुँचने वाले हो और घर पहुँचने से पहले आपको AC ऑन करना है 5 मिनट के लिए, तो घर पहुँचने से पहले 5 मिनट पहले आपने AC आपके मोबाइल के थ्रू ऑन कर लिया. तो ये सारी चीजें, तो ये छोटी सी चीजें जो अभी भी एक्चुअली अवेलेबल है, बट व्हाट आई एम सेइंग इज कि यही चीजें आगे जाके एडवांस होके इट्स गोइंग टू बी, अभी वो क्या होगी ये मुझे भी पता नहीं, बिकॉज इट्स द फ्यूचर, बट दिस इज द डायरेक्शन इन विच द आर्किटेक्चर प्रोफेशन एंड द कंस्ट्रक्शन इंडस्ट्री इज मूविंग. Or all the new people, all the young people who are interested, they should be aware of the fact कि ये जो आर्किटेक्चर फील्ड है वो आगे जाके इतना एक्साइटिंग होने वाला है बेसिकली. It is not going to be only about the brick, mortar, steel and cement. It's going to be a lot of IT.
Thank you. Next question from an anonymous person says, "Sir, I am a diploma holder in civil engineering and I'm confused what to do after diploma, BE or B.Arch. Please guide me.
So, like I said, I may not be the very best person to comment on the sort of the admission processes, but if he has done diploma in, probably I can try to find out if there is a way. Is he interested in doing architecture, or is he interested in doing
It's not
engineering?
clear. You can, who was asked this question, can you please write down? I will come back to that question
Because
again.
it all depends at the end, what that person's interest is. If he's interested in doing architecture, then we
So,
can, look at that answer from
so,
that
so
point of view.
basically, the idea is whichever what your interest is in, you need to sort of research yourself and find out which direction that you want to go in.
Right,
Like how,
exactly.
Sir had his own plans in life when it comes to his own career. So he did his own research. He found out by himself. He did everything by himself, and today he's here. So like that, you also need to research and find out
Right,
quite a bit about the phase that you're intended in.
right.
So next question is regarding landscaping. What is its prospect in India and abroad, and if I can get any certifications here in India,
Yeah. So
landscaping.
landscaping, like I showed in my the last slide, it's a course that you do after architecture. So there's no bachelor's in landscape. Uh, this is a master's course that you can do landscape architecture. There are several colleges, good colleges in India, which offer masters in landscape architecture, but you have to do it after your bachelor's in architecture. And it has a lot of scope. There are many architecture firms who do landscape, especially when you're looking at, I don't know if the new central vista that is being proposed by the government in Delhi. That's a landscape project, an urban design project in itself. There's a lot of scope, right from individual sort of developer built housing where landscape is required, because a lot of housing colonies, they give a lot of importance to landscape. A lot of developers have started realizing that landscape is not just about यहाँ पे पेड़ पौधे लगा दो और यहाँ पे कुछ फूल पत्तियां लगा दो तो वो लैंडस्केप हो गया. तो पहले वो थिंकिंग था. अब people have started to realize कि landscape actually it's a very very big component of any development. तो हम बिल्डिंग तो बना लेते हैं, लेकिन जो बिल्डिंग के आसपास का जो इलाका है ना, हम काफी बार बहुत सारे डेवलपर्स इग्नोर कर देते हैं वो. तो लैंडस्केप इज ऑल दैट कि बिल्डिंग के बाहर आपका जो भी हो रहा है ना,
Use of
दैट इज
space.
लैंडस्केप, which a lot of developers have started realizing that it is very important. It increases the value of the project, it increases the value of the city, and people have started, it sells the project because it looks beautiful, and it's an entire big field in itself, and it's gaining a lot of more importance in India, of course abroad also. So definitely people who are interested should do more research and get into it. But again, like I said, it's after architecture.
Next anonymous question. How do I build a career in commercial real estate?
See, building a career after you've gone through a training, a lot of people, how they build that career is based on, first of all, your interest, whether it's something of very keen interest to you. Secondly, it also depends on after you graduate, after you do your B.Arch, what is the thing that you have started getting your experience in, right? So if after graduation, if you have worked with a company that does hospitals and you have started getting experience in how to design hospitals, then ideally you should develop your career in hospital design, right? That should become your expertise. But let's say if you are saying that, no, I want to get into commercial architecture, and by commercial, if you mean working for developers, then you start working with a company that does work for developers. So then what happens is you start developing your network, you start developing your client base, you start developing your own network base of commercial consultants, and then that's how you sort of take your career forward within the commercial thing. So if you are very very sure that this is what you want to focus on, then you should steer your career in that direction. You should work with those architects who do that sort of work. You should develop your network in that region, and only then sort of you will be able to develop it.
Thank you. Khanshif asks, how can I prepare ourselves for NATA examination? NATA, are you aware?
Nata, like I said, probably I'm not the best person to give you advice on Nata exam, but there are many people who take classes on Nata exam. Because when I gave this entrance exam 20 years ago, it was a very different format, a very different way. Things have changed drastically after that. So I'm not very sure what kind of syllabus there is in the NATA entrance exam nowadays, but there are many people who take classes and train people for these entrance exams. So, I'm sure there'll be people available.
Next question from somebody who's doing their 12th standard. I'm PCB student, and can I do an architect course after this?
Yeah,
After
definitely.
PCB? Okay.
No, I think you need a maths for architecture.
All right. So, with that, I think all of the questions which are relevant have been answered. So, once again, thank you, Mr. Samir, for your wonderful time and dedication to the development of our community. And thank you for joining us at the Association of Muslim Professionals Career Guidance Seminar today. I'm sure all the participants have benefited a lot from all of the things that Sir has spoken about. And I wish each one of you all the very best. Please stay very focused. So, if you want to build a career in architecture, be very clear about what you want to do. Just don't do any job. Have a plan for your career. Have a long-term plan for your career. 20 years, 30 years ka plan bana ke. Then you start working on it. Then, inshallah, Allah Taala will give you a lot of barakat
No,
development.
that's
So,
a very good point, Fuzail Bhai.
yes,
That before you get into it, do a lot of research and a lot of data finding about that profession. Don't just get into it just like that because you have heard it somewhere and you like it. You find out what's in it, because a lot of things in architecture, especially the gestation period or is very long. So there's, first of all, in the 5-year course itself is a long course, and then after that, if you do a 2 years masters, it takes about 7 years. Now
and
if you
time
want to
doesn't
get,
come back.
yeah, and if you want to get established completely, then you need at least 10 more years of actual practice before you can call yourself an expert. So after 20 years of my experience, now I can kind of call myself an expert in the field. But then that's the 10 years plus, that's the minimum that you need to sort of on an average get. So be prepared for things like this. Things happen slowly, but it takes a little longer to develop a career. And it's not just for architecture, but I think it's true for any profession, but more so for professional fields like architecture.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, sir. So now, so we'll just have a quick dua, and Shahzad, over to you.
Thank you so much, Fazil Bhai, and thank you so much, Mr. Samir, for such an insightful session. With such a vast experience and knowledge, we would definitely be looking for more sessions from you in future as well. So we would request you to stay available if we have any future coming sessions in terms of architecture. And to all the participants, it was fantastic to have you all on board. AMP organizes such session by highly qualified professionals and experts in the particular field to share their learnings and viewpoints to guide not only the youths but everyone. So we request you all to keep joining these sessions, which will help you in choosing a right career, which will also help you to succeed in your career, and share these learnings with your friends and family members as well. Ask them to join these sessions as well. So we'll be ending this session with a short dua. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين يا أول الأولين يا آخر الآخرين يا ذا القوة المتين يا راحم المساكين يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم اللهم أنت السلام ومنك السلام تبارك ربنا وتعالى يا ذا الجلال والإكرام ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي امري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي اللهم يسر لنا امورنا كلها مع راحتي لقلوبنا وابداننا والسلامة والعافية في ديننا ودنيانا حسبي الله لا اله الا هو عليه توكلت وهو رب العرش العظيم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Samir sir, for being a part of AMP's online career guidance seminar. And thank you, everyone. We'll see you again tomorrow, inshallah. We'll be ending this session. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Fuzail bhai.